now like to introduce our first speaker for today, Fakundo Giuliani. He is a systems engineer from Buenos Aires. I hope I pronounced the name of the city right, in Argentina, with over 15 years of experience in software development. He's a full stack developer, an Auth0 Ambassador, GitKraken Ambassador, Cloudinary Media Expert, and also an open source contributor. One minor thing to add that was not in the slides is that he is also a Prisma Ambassador. Hopefully he will get to tell you more about that during the presentation. Awesome. So I'd like, without any further delay, I bring you Facundo.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the presentation and for the opportunity of giving this talk. Well, let me share my screen and we can start.
Awesome. Cool. I see yours prepared, so I hope you're ready.
I am.
Yes, cool.
Perfect. So again, thank you for the opportunity. And today we will talk a little bit about authentication and authorization using a platform, Auth0, and how we can use it and link it with Prisma and Next.js in our web application. First of all, I want to present myself. I'm Facundo Giuliani. I'm from Buenos Aires, Argentina. I'm a new developer relations engineer at Storyblok. Yesterday was my first day. But I'm also a full stack developer. I'm an Auth0 Ambassador. I'm a Cloudinary Media Developer Expert. Cloudinary is a platform to handle images and videos. I'm a GitKraken Ambassador. GitKraken is a Git user interface application. And I was newly selected as a Prisma Ambassador, so this is a great honor to me to share this with a lot of people and Prisma experts. So this is kind of great, and it's new. So hoping to see what the future brings to this. If you want to contact me, my website is fgiuliani.com. My Twitter handle is Facundo Zurdo, and my GitHub handle is fgiuliani. So let's start. First of all, I wanted to give like a formal definition of what authentication is. It is the action of validating that users are who they claim to be, implementing a credential systems, like it can be a user and password combination, security questions, or even facial recognition. So here what we are doing is, if someone is using our application, that we are verifying that the person that is browsing our website or our web application is who he claims to be or she claims to be. And authorization, on the other hand, is the action of determining what a user can or can't do. So we will have an initial page in our web application, let's say, where we can put a user and a password to say, okay, I'm this user, I'm Facundo. And on the other hand, we will have different tasks or actions that we can do in our web application. And depending on the role or the, authorization level that a user has, we will authorize or not or disable features from our web application. So that's mainly the difference between authentication and authorization. In this case, we will talk about Auth0, which is a flexible drop-in solution to add authentication and authorization services to our applications. So we can create a security platform for a web application and program everything and take care of all the details that handle the security of our application. But the thing is that it is complicated to do something from the ground and reinvent the wheel, creating a security platform. And on the other hand, we have services like Auth0 that are provided and that we can use only connecting to an API or to the service itself. And we don't have to worry about the maintenance of the platform, or how to implement the authentication, or the details of how it is implemented, or how to secure the data that we are storing related to the user's database that we are handling. So giving that, let's say, responsibility to a third-party service or an external organization makes us not to worry about how we are implementing the security platform, and don't spend time on that, and spend that time on something that gives more value for our web applications. And on the other hand, we have security experts that are working every day to keep this platform as secure as possible, and adding features and adding behavior, and well, maintaining all the platform working, so we don't have to worry about that. Auth0 in particular has some features, some benefits. We have a single sign-on service that we can use, a universal login, let's say, that if we use that in our web applications, we allow the users to log in or to create an account in Auth0 platform, and that user can be reused or shared between different applications that use Auth0 as a service. So for instance, if I'm logged in one application using Auth0 and my user and password combination, and I enter to another application that uses Auth0, I don't have to log in again. I will be already logged in. That's one of the features, or one of the authentication modes that we have. It's not that that's the only one. But on the other hand, we will have social logins. If we want to log in using Facebook or a Google account, we can do that with Auth0. Another authentication mode is a multi-factor authentication, in case we want to implement that. We have different standard protocols that we can use for the security of our web applications, like OAuth or JWT. And we will have tools that we can use for reporting and analytics in the Auth0 control panel. What is cool is that we can connect to the tool, to the service, using any programming language or technology. Well, not any, but a lot of them, and we will see that. But we can create a web application using PHP, Node.js, or front-end frameworks like React or Next.js, and connect to Auth0 using their API or some SDKs that are available. And what is cool is that we have a free plan up to 7,000 monthly users that we can use without paying anything, and without even configuring a credit card or anything. So that's very cool. As I mentioned before, we will have different libraries, and we can use different programming languages and connect to Auth0, like single page applications using backend programming languages, front-end frameworks, or mobile applications. And we have SDKs to be used with all of those tools or programming languages, what will make the way of connecting to Auth0 way easier. You can go to that URL. I will share the URLs after the presentation. But if you go there, you can see a list of programming languages and the SDKs for them. Today, we will talk about one specific SDK, which is the Next.js SDK. You can download it and use it in your application from Node Package Manager using npm, and the name of the package is what is in the bottom of the slide, Auth0/Next.js-Auth0. And well, if you, in this presentation, I will assume that you know what Next.js is. If you don't know about Next.js, it's a framework that is built on top of React and that you can use to create not only user interfaces, but to create pages using server-side rendering, or generate static sites at build time, or incremental static generation. And well, it's cool because it's a framework that, using the same tools that React offers, we can create a web application working on the backend and on the front end. And well, if you want to talk about Next.js, we can chat later, but I will assume that you are at least familiar with a little bit of how Next.js works. But using this package, we will have to configure some details in our environmental file, or our environmental in the hosting service that we are using. And using these environmental variables, using these exact same names, will facilitate us to generate all the authentication for our web application without having to program anything. You will see that, and later we will see an example. But if you set this secret, which is a random 32 characters string that you can generate, a base URL, which is the home page of your web application, an issue base URL, which is a domain that is generated by Auth0, I will show you that later, and a client ID and a secret to connect to the Auth0 tenant, to the Auth0 application that is generated by Auth0 too. But if you configure these environmental variables and you create one file in this root, in this folder, pages, API, auth, and that name with Auth0 into the brackets, .js. If you know about Next.js, that is a dynamic root, which means that it can change the slug that we are using to browse that page. But inside the API folder, we will have all the API roots of our web applications, which are the serverless function, let's say. And if we create a folder called auth, and inside that folder we create this file, Auth0 SDK will auto-generate all the logic that we need to handle the authentication of our web application, because we will start to support these 4 roots in our web application that we can use, and we won't have to program anything for them. API auth login will be used to log in a user, and that will display the login box to insert the user and the password. API auth logout will log out the user from our web application. Callback is a callback URL that we will define in Auth0 control panel. So whenever a user login in our web application, the callback URL will be the URL where we are redirecting the user after the login action. And API auth me is like a control panel that displays all the user information that we can use, again, without programming anything. This will be dynamically generated by Auth0 SDK. So let's see a quick demo about a web application that uses Auth0 SDK, and let's see how we can link that with Prisma to store information related to the users that we handle in Auth0 authentication platform, and save that in our database and link that to other data that we are handling. So let me, well, this is the application. First of all, I want to show you how the application works. This is an application where users can log in and create accounts, and when they are logged in, they can subscribe to courses that have lessons that are videos, YouTube videos that you can watch. But the thing is, we have the courses available, but a user has to acquire these courses and the lessons. We are not handling money here. We are not going to use any payment platform. But the idea would be that, I mean, like you are purchasing a course and you have all the lessons available. I didn't want to get into deep with the payment information, but for instance, if you go to this course here, I'm already logged in, so let's do the complete example. So here is the page. We have all these courses list and a login button. I will click on login here, and we will have the login box, so we can log in using Auth0. You can see the logo here. And we can sign up and create an account, or if we already have a login or already have a user, we can log in with it. What I will use.
Hi, Facundo. Sorry
yes.
for interrupting. Could you kindly zoom in a little?
For sure.
Zoom in a little
for
further.
Sure.
Awesome. Thanks.
Sorry. So this is the login box. You can put the user and your password. You can create a new account if you don't have one. All of this is provided by Auth0. I didn't have to create this page or to program this page. It's all provided by Auth0, even though I can create my custom login page, but that's something that if you want to research and investigate, you are invited to do that. This is a simple example that I want to show. But I will log in using a Google account that I already have. I will select one of my Google accounts. And after login in Auth0, I'm redirecting to the callback URL that I defined in Auth0 platform that I will show you later. And now if you see here the page, instead of having a login link at the top right corner, I have a logout, which is the one that I used before, a dashboard link that it didn't appear when I was not logged in. This dashboard will display all the courses that I already acquired. And here I can go to this course, let's say, that has a list of lessons. And if I go to this lesson, as I didn't get the course before, I will have a get course button. I will click it, and I'm redirecting to a success page that says that now I have access to the course. So if I go to the dashboard here, I will have all the courses that I acquired before, and this is the one that I just acquired, so I will go here. This is the same page that we saw before, but now if I go to a lesson, I have the access to the YouTube video and I can see the lessons of that course. Again, this dashboard links is going to be only displayed for logged in users. So if I log out here, I don't see the dashboard link anymore, and I have the login link here. And if I go to any course, as I'm not logged in, I will have to log in first to be able to acquire the course. So this is like the application working. What I wanted to show you now is how to create an Auth0 application and how to configure that application from Auth0 in our web application to connect to that. I will go to auth0.com, which is Auth0 homepage. And I will log in because I already have an account, but you can create one. It's free and you only have to define some details. And now I will be redirected to the control panel. So now that I'm here, I already have an application created. So I will go to applications here. If you don't have one, you can create an application from here. And here I have all the applications from my account. I will see this one next, Prisma Auth0, which is the example that we are using now. And you will see here that I have this domain, which is one of the environmental variables that I mentioned you that you will have to configure. I have a client ID and a client secret that I can copy. And all these three details, I will have to use them in my web application configuration to connect to Auth0. Then if we go here, we can see that we can configure a lot of things like the application logo. I used Auth0, but we can change it. The application type that we are creating, this is like a regular web application, the authentication method that you want to use, etc. But one important thing that we have to configure are the callback URLs for a web application. As I'm using it locally, the callback application, the callback URL will be the one that is automatically generated by Auth0 Sdk, which is API auth callback. So I configured this one here. And you have allowed logout URLs, and I put the URL that you will be returning when you are logging out, which is the home page of my application, again, locally, because that is how I'm working. These fields are lists, so you can add other URLs if you want to use any other. And this will be all the basic information and configuration that we need for Auth0 to be connected to our web application. Pretty simple. And if you are not, if you don't have more than 7,000 active users in your application, this is all you need to do, and it's free and you don't have to pay anything. But now what I wanted to see is the code of our application. So, well, this is the details that I mentioned that we will need to configure here with the base URL, the user base URL, which is the domain that we grabbed from Auth0 control panel, the client ID and the secret for this specific application. Then what I wanted to show you is if we go here, this is a Next.js application, but if I go to the package JSON, you will see that I already added the npm package Auth0. I hope you can see it. It's pretty big, but Auth0 Next.js Auth0. This is the SDK that I mentioned before. Here we have the root app file for our Next.js application. This is a file that will wrap all the pages from our web application. And something cool that I wanted to show you is that we have this user provider here that we are importing from the SDK. And user provider is a component that we can use to extend and manage a user that is logged in and user information in our web application. So if we want to access to information related to the user that is logged in our web application, we can use the component. So as this app file is the one that wraps all the pages from our web application, we are wrapping all the content with a user provider component. So this is accessible from any page from our web app. And here is the dynamic API route that I mentioned before. In the folder API auth0 into the brackets, we create this file and we are importing these methods from Auth0 SDK. The most important one is this handle auth, which is the one that will be in charge of handling all the authentication for a web application. So you can add the code for this method, default handle auth, without using anything from here. I mean, this could be like this, and it will work anyway without having to configure anything. I'm adding this piece of code because I'm using this handle callback function because what I'm going to do is, as I want to link the users from Auth0 with the Prisma database, I want to call a function whenever I'm redirecting to the callback URL. So if I'm logging a user in Auth0 and I want, when we bring the user back to our web application, we are redirecting the user to the callback URL. But after this callback, this is the function that we are calling. After this callback, we will call a handle callback function that will be in charge of call this other function after callback, and this function will be executed before redirecting the user to our callback URL that we defined before. And this after callback function, what we'll do is to call this create user function that we are importing from a utility file that we have in our application. What this does is to create the user in the database using Prisma if we don't have that user in our database. We have a unique rule defined in our database. If the user already exists, we won't create it again. But this is a handler function that we can see. I mean, it's we are instantiating a new Prisma client, and using the client Prisma, we will create a new user using the email that we are sending as the parameter to the function. We are getting the session, I mean the user that is logged in. We will grab the user object and grab the email data from here because that is the property that we want to store. And this is it. This is all of what we need to handle authentication in our web application. What we can do now is add behavior to our pages to use this information. So this is like the API route that we would use to authenticate the users. But for instance, if we go to this page, which is the get button that we click when we want to get a course that we didn't acquire before, look that this is a dynamic API route, API get, and we will have a course ID, which is passed as a parameter through the URL. We will have this get session function that we are importing from the SDK. And when this route is executed, we will get the course ID from the URL. We will call that get session function that will return the user that is logged in our web application. And what we are doing here is instantiating a Prisma client that will update a user in the database, in our database, not Auth0, and where the email is equal to the email of the user that is logged in our web application, we will connect the course that we are trying to get. So this is the button get in the course page that we saw before. Another interesting page that we can see to verify how we are handling the authentication is the dashboard page. So I will go to Pages, Dashboard, and remember that this dashboard is only visible but for login users. So we will have the same get session function that we used before to get all the information related to the login user. And we will have a with page auth require function. So here is the code of our dashboard where we are listing all the courses that we have for the user that is logged in, all the available courses, and links to the courses pages. This is like the markup that we are generating for the dashboard. But when we execute this page, we will execute server-side code, first wrapping that with this function with page auth require, which means that if a user tries to access to this URL, to this page, we will force the user to log in first if the user is not logged in. So we will verify that only logged in users can access to this page, which is what we want to do. I mean, we only display the dashboard for logged in users. And after we verify that, what we do is to get the session, in this request, get the session, and we will get the user, and we will use the email of the user that is logged in to find that user with the Prisma client and include all the courses that we have for that user. And we will return from the server side, we will return a GV user object with all the properties for that user. And that is what we are using to generate the markup. We are using the courses list, and we are displaying all of them in the dashboard. And probably another cool component that we can see is the navigation bar that we have in all the pages, because you remember that we are displaying a login link or a logout link, depending on the state of the user, and we are showing or hiding the dashboard link if the user is logged in or not. So to do that, in a client side, we will have a React router, a React hook that we can use. Is use user, and we are importing it from Auth0 Sdk too. And we get the user that is logged in now, and we can use that user. So if we have a user, I mean, if the user is not null, we will display the link to the dashboard. If the user is not present, we will return null and we won't render anything. And the same here. If we have a logged in user, we will display the logout link, which is, if you see here, it's pointing to an API route that is automatically generated by the SDK. I mean, this route and this file doesn't exist in our application. I mean, in our solution, in our file system. And if the user is not logged in, we will display the login link with the same logic, a page that is automatically generated by Auth0 SDK. So this is pretty much what I wanted to show you. I mean, the authentication part of the application is pretty simpler to implement, and you can use the information related to the login user in the client side, in the server side of our sites, and we have available different functions that we can use to make our work easier. This application is stored in my GitHub account, so if you want to take a look, I will share the GitHub link so you can see all the other pages in case that you want. And also, I will share with you these links. If you want to learn more, the official documentation site from Auth0, all the SDKs library that we have available in case we are working with a different programming language or a different tool or framework. You can see all the SDKs available there. And if you want to learn more about Next.js SDK from Auth0, that is the URL of the official GitHub repository. So you can see there all the functions, all the methods, and all the objects that we have available to be used in our Next.js applications. So that was it. Thank you very much for the opportunity again. And if you have any question, you can reach me. Those are my contact channel, let's say. And I hope you enjoyed the presentation. So thank you very much.
Awesome talk, Facundo. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I should also say we have James Quick, who's a developer advocate at Auth0, is joining in the stream. Yes.
So cool.
Yes.
Thank you for joining.
Yes. I haven't really touched authentication a lot, but your talk was really insightful. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
And it seems we don't have any questions from the chat. So thank you and have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity.